Hi, it's Jon Cronshaw here from Indie Author Mastermind. Today I am joined by not one, but two guests. I am joined by Clare Littlemore and Alison Ingleby. So Clare Littlemore is a young adult dystopian and sci-fi author who thrives on fictionally destroying the world with a cup of tea by her side. The tea will often be cold because her characters have a way of grabbing hold of her and not letting go until the final page of their story is finished. They regularly have the same effect on her readers. Hello, Clare.
Hello, lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And Alison Ingleby is a USA Today best-selling author of sci-fi and fantasy fiction. She loves writing cross-genre books featuring complex characters, twisting plots, and fast-paced action with a dash of romance. When not writing, Alison enjoys reading, drinking tea, and spending time outdoors. She lives in Yorkshire, England, but her heart loiters by the sea in northwest Scotland. Hello, Alison.
Hi, thanks for having me. I feel like I need to up my bio game after that. Yours is so much better, Clare.
I love how we both mentioned tea.
Yeah,
I was literally just about to say that.
Yeah, the tea thing, that's interesting, isn't it? Because the reason I've got you on here today is to talk about using Facebook groups basically to engage with readers. And you have a Facebook group between you, which is called the Last Book Cafe on Earth. So I did think it was interesting that you both mentioned tea. Excellent.
And cake, don't forget the cake.
Cake is always good. Yes. We did Lent recently and we had to give up eating all that kind of stuff. So there was no chocolate, no biscuits. And then I think we've just been binging on mini eggs since then. So yeah.
Exactly what we've been doing all weekend, eating cake.
Eating cake, yeah. And it's my birthday soon, so I'm going to have another cake. That's my plan. So that's
happy birthday in advance.
So what I want to talk about then is this group. I mean, I think, how long have you had it now? It must be, was it 2018? I want to say you started this. Is that about right?
I have no idea, but if you've looked it up, you probably have more of an idea than us. It's been a while, like it's been a good few years. Oh, let me think. I can probably, I think it was 2018. Yeah, because
I remember it was, I think it was not long after I'd done my third Wasteland book when that came out. I think I remember you kind of doing a little call out for the group and things. So the fact it's still going is amazing, because there's so many groups on Facebook that just seem to drop off. You never hear from them again.
Yeah, we've tried to keep things going and change things up a bit. We've tried a few different approaches and sort of tools to draw readers in over the years, and it has changed and evolved a bit, I think, over that time. Certainly I first started it up, and then it's like, I don't want to do this by myself, so I need to rope someone else in. I managed to persuade Clare to come in and kind of help, and now Clare is much better at consistency than me, and she's much more organized, so she does a lot of the legwork now. So thank you, Clare. In terms of those day-to-day posts.
I think we kind of quite a nice balance, because Alison's much better at sort of spontaneously thinking of interesting things to sort of throw up there, and that gets quite a lot of engagement from our members. Whereas I'm much more I'm very methodical. I have to know what I'm doing. So I have a time every Friday, and I sit and I think of the posts for the week and I set them up. And it doesn't always take me hours. You know, some of them are quite simple, but I like to know what I'm doing. So it does mean that there's always something on there every couple of days, which does help to kind of keep things going and keep people involved. We've tried, like Alison said, various things. So there's a mixture between silly fun things that people might just like, or do a laughing emoji or whatever, but then some more things that we try and get discussions going, so quotes from dystopian novels and so on, with a question, and that kind of tends to bring different people in, because we have quite a wide range of people within the group, I think.
And I think that's kind of one of the challenges of it, actually, is we have a few people who kind of appreciate intellectual discussions, which is quite fun, and it's quite nice to have that, but then there are some people who just want like cool gifs and memes and things, but it's nice to have that balance.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you talk about like the idea of, I don't know, the variety of posts and things. I mean, that's the challenge, isn't it, on social media, is getting the engagement, getting the people coming back and things like that. I mean, are there any, I don't know, types of posts you do that you find, okay, these work really well. These are the ones that get people coming back, and you know, these ones just don't work at all.
I think again we have different people that respond to different things. So there are people who just kind of hang around on the periphery, and they will just like I do quite a lot of silly grammar memes, or like writing memes where you're banging your head against a wall when you've had a bad week and you're like, I can't write any more words. And a lot of people just like to kind of, like say, not really do much. You know, sometimes they'll be like, keep going, or they'll do an emoji or a little. So it's just like a fleeting contact. I think what we've tried to work hard to do is engage people with more sort of questions. So every Monday we have a post which that's kind of evolved. It was always like a dystopian quote, but now we've kind of tied that into our book club. We have like a monthly or bi-monthly, depending on how busy we are, but a book club where we read a book and we encourage other members to read the same book. And then at the end of the month or 2 months, we have a Saturday afternoon where we have questions through the afternoon that people can respond to. And on the Monday, I always link in the quote to the book that's coming up. So it kind of has a dual purpose. It'll give people a little flavour of what the book might be about, or what the sort of style of writing is. And if it's quite a controversial quote or an interesting quote or a funny quote, I sometimes throw a question at the bottom and people might respond to that. And then it also in turn promotes the book club as well, and hopefully gets more people reading it, so that we have more participation in the book club, which is much more meaty in terms of the responses that people give, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. So it's like, yeah, there's different kind of layers of participation, and I suppose is the key with this. I suppose you've got the most engaged who are doing the book club and kind of getting involved in all the discussions, and then just do you get many people, just what they call them, like loiterers, or you know, kind of lurkers? That's the word I was looking for.
I think we've got a core group, and I think you probably get this in most Facebook groups actually, is you've kind of got a core group of people who engage quite a lot and comment on things and get involved. And then I think there are other people who I kind of feel like, oh, I haven't heard them for a while, they disappeared, and then they'll pop up every now and then, usually on like a particular post or something that maybe is of interest to them. So I guess they're your kind of lurkers in the background who are just watching what's going on, but only kind of commenting when it's something that really interests them.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, yeah, that is one of the issues, isn't it, with Facebook? I mean, I found this myself with groups that I've joined, and I want to get involved and I want to know what's going on, and they just never appear on my feed. So, you know, it's a case of, there's some groups in particular where I've got them bookmarked and I'll literally just go through them. But yeah, I suppose it's hard to kind of keep it when you are fighting against that, whatever whims of the Facebook algorithm are going on that week. So I suppose what I want to ask you actually is how do you get people into the group in the first place? I mean, is there something that you do to kind of recruit, or have you done that now and you've just got your core people?
I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
You go.
it's a mixture of both. So we haven't like done it and finished with it. We do have people joining, but we've tried different things. So obviously we have links at the back of all our books. So if people are wanting to just, not to directly email us or anything, but they want to sort of hang out with us, as it were, then there's a link at the end of every book I publish, and I'm sure it's the same for Alison, where people can just join and come and say hi. Equally, I put that in my newsletter every now and again, so anyone who's joined my newsletter new that doesn't know about it can come along. But one thing we did do a while back, we had a couple of other authors who were helping us to run the group. There were 4 of us for a while, and they've just had various life things happen that have meant they've had to step back from that. But the 4 of us had already been participating in an anthology that we wrote, so a dystopian anthology that Alison organised. I'm sure she might talk about that a bit more in a minute. But we took the 4 stories we'd had in that anthology, so it wasn't any additional work for us, and we put them into a little mini anthology of our own. So we've got this perma-free mini anthology, which is advertised on the cover as Stories from the Last Book Cafe on Earth. Alison, do you want to say a bit more about that maybe?
Yeah, so we set it as perma-free, and it's kind of a lead magnet for the Facebook group, I guess. And it's been out probably over 2 years, I'd say, probably 2 years. And we do nothing to promote it other than, you know, maybe mentioning it occasionally in newsletters or, you know, as a link. But apart from that, we do nothing to promote it, no paid promotion, and it still gets downloads pretty much every day. You know, it gets a reasonable number of downloads a month. And I think that brings a few people to the group. And I think it also, you know, brings people to our books, our individual author books and pages and things. So I think that was definitely a worthwhile thing to do. I guess we could put more effort into promoting it, but it's just one of those things where there's always more you can do, isn't there, and not necessarily enough time to do it. So for now, we just kind of leave that as a perma-free lead magnet to draw people in. But it gives people a flavour of our writing, what we're about, and if they're interested in sort of dystopian, post-apocalyptic stories, then we hope from there, if they're on Facebook, then they decide to join the group.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Yeah, I've not thought of that as an idea. That should work really well. I'm just wondering, in terms of, I suppose, your individual book sales and things like that, is there any way you use do you use this group to kind of promote launches and things like that? I mean, how do you find that works?
I mean, I think that was the initial idea of Alison for setting it up, was that we would have a place where we could promote our own work. So when we do have a launch, we mention it, and we put various posts up about the thing, and we often quite kind of try and do it for each other's. So you're not necessarily just doing it for your own book. So if I know Alison's got a launch, or I'll mention that, you know, our very own Alison Ingleby, blah blah blah, and I think that's quite a nice side to it, and also you can encourage people to share out of the group. So that core of people we have who we know do enjoy our writing have probably come to the group for our writing in the first place, that we can use it as a vehicle for that. Again, I think there's probably more we could do on that, but yeah, it's definitely nice to feel like you've got a group of people who are always on your side and are always going to enjoy your writing and that sort of thing, and might review your books and that sort of thing. So it can be really helpful.
Excellent. So yeah, I suppose one question I've got is, I mean, we know the kind of things that work to get engagement. Is there anything that you've tried on the site that maybe hasn't worked so well, or maybe you regret in hindsight or anything like that?
I wouldn't say that we'd necessarily regret anything. We have tried a lot of things, and I think one thing that we enjoyed and are probably both quite proud of, but didn't necessarily have, I guess, the level of engagement that we really wanted, was our story. So we decided to write a story kind of in real time, and post it and make it exclusive to the group. So what would happen is, it was a post-apocalyptic story. We came up with a kind of concept for it, and we take it in turns to write a chapter each week and then post that chapter in the group. And not only that, but at the end of the chapter or the scene, there was a question for the group in terms of how they wanted to continue. So it was a bit like a sort of choose your own adventure type story. And sometimes the questions were kind of sort of more fun things, like, does she choose the cup of tea or the glass of wine or something like that? And other times it actually had a real bearing on the plot, and then we'd take that, incorporate it into the episode for the following week. And we did that for, I think that's probably about 8 months, maybe. It was quite a long time we sort of committed to, and we've got a good chunk of a novel there. Admittedly, we were pantsing it the whole way through pretty much, so so obviously it would need a lot of work, and we really hoped actually that would get a few more people interested and engaged and kind of voting on these things. And there were people who really enjoyed it and were kind of begging for us to continue. But I don't know what you think, Claire, but I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get more engagement in that. And I think that was one of the reasons why we kind of reached a natural conclusion and then stopped it.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, it was enjoyable, and we're very proud of it, because I think we must have, I don't know how many thousand words we must have, but we, by the end, about 30 episodes or possibly more than that. And each episode was between, I don't know, 1,000 and 2,000 words, or maybe more than that. So effectively we were writing a chapter of a book each week, and we thought that kind of giving the option, the choice at the end would be really fun, and like I say, it was for some people, but we just didn't feel that for the effort it took, because I think the balance effort that you put in with the hour, it wasn't really giving us what we wanted, if that makes sense. It wasn't doing enough for us, and it did take a morning of every single week for us, where we'd have to write it, and then we'd always run it by each other. We edited it, sort of self-edited, spent a lot. So yeah, I mean, it was sort of, I suppose, twofold, because Alison and I kind of how we'd work together in terms of like if we were ever going to co-write it. So it was a bit of an experiment in that way. And if we wanted to come back to it, we definitely ended it at the midpoint. We ended at a climax where it was about looking for water in a landscape that had very little, and she found the water source, and we left it there. And there were a few people going, where is the next big announcement, that we weren't going to carry on. So we could definitely go back to it, but I think we'd feel like we needed to have more of a response, that it was getting more people reading it and interested in it and engaged for back to it, particularly with the amount of time that we have in our week, or the lack of we have with everything else we do.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, this is the true. I mean, I've been reluctant, and I've had quite a few people tell me I need to get, a readers group on Facebook and things like that, and I have been reluctant to do that, just because of time and mental energy and things like that. And I don't know, it's like part of me thinks, yeah, I should definitely do this, and then part of me just thinks I really can't be bothered. So, I don't know, like how much time and effort does it actually take to keep this thing going? I mean, you seem to post quite a lot, and yeah.
I mean, like I say, I'm probably a portion of my time on Friday after setting up posts for. It's not hours, and it depends on how my week's going. Like if I've had a really busy week and I don't have a lot of time, Alison will probably notice that the posts are a lot more like, here's a cream, or they're not massive. And like I say, it helps me to be organized. Always a Monday post, which is a quote. We don't take long. I just find them on Goodreads or whatever and stick them up there with a little comment underneath. And then on a Friday, I'd forgotten about this, but I always do work in progress. So I literally go, what have you been writing this week? Is there a paragraph that you can include that won't give too much away about your story, but might like pique a bit of in? So there's always those, they don't take very long to set up. So that's how it is kept going in a sort of not too much kind of demanding way. And I think things we've done in the past that have taken longer are the things that we've had to sideline a little bit. That's not to say we couldn't pick them up again. So not ridiculous amounts of time. I don't know what you think.
Well, I don't really spend any time on it. At the moment, I feel really bad saying that. It sounds awful, doesn't it? But I think, I mean, certainly a few years ago, like when we were doing the story, and then we decided that had to come to an end. Like I was I was pregnant, I was going through a lot, I had a lot of other work on, and I have a young child now, and I have a job as well as my writing, so I actually have very limited time. So I tend to post more sporadically, as Claire said, which means that I can post something as and when it comes up. I go in and kind of look at the posts, respond to them. And I guess the big thing we're doing at the moment, which we have kept on, is the book club. So we usually have a bit of a chat about that in terms of what questions we want to post and what questions we want to ask, and then deciding on books for future months. So we've done that in a couple of ways. Sometimes we'll decide the book, or come up with some suggestions. We've posted in the group both to ask for suggestions and with a list of suggestions for people to vote for the book. So certainly I think for the past sort of 6 months, the books we've chosen have been ones that the group have voted on. So I think that's probably the big thing we've got on at the moment. And as Claire said, as and when we get a bit more time, then we might try some other things and see what else works, really, because as you know, things in the author world are changing all the time. Things with Facebook are changing all the time, so you just have to try new things, experiment, and if they don't work, they don't work, and if they do, that's great.
Some of the things we've tried that we haven't, so I know a do welcome posts when people join a group, but we do always try to welcome new members, and we do it in kind of a quirky way. So they always get welcomed in, asked a question about what they're reading or what their favorite dystopian book is, and then we give them like a gif or an image of a cake so that they're kind of welcome to the cafe, which carries on the theme, which I always quite like. And quite often that talking initially in, oh hi, thanks for welcoming me. We had someone join who's obviously come from reading Alison's books, because I said, oh, what are you reading? And they're like, do one of Alison's books. And that was really lovely. It's like, it's so great to be able to tell an author like their book. So that's kind of really lovely. And then the other thing I was going to say is we've done this in the past and it worked really well, and unfortunately it's fallen by the wayside, is trying to engage members from this core of members that we have who are really quite faithful and around all the time, that might be in actually adding content. So I had a small group of 3 members who we knew were regularly contacting us and around and about on the Facebook group, and we had all 3 of them. We made them moderators, and for quite a long time one of them ran the book club for us, which was fantastic. And then unfortunately she got a much more important job, and like as in her life she got a job, and it meant that she didn't have the time anymore. So she still pops in and out, but she can't run it. So kind of we do that between us now. But whilst that was happening, it was amazing, because all we had to do was approve what we're reading, and she set all the questions up, and it really took a load off from us having to do that. And then one of the others I know used to do like an ask the author question. So she would set up questions, ask us them in advance, so we would answer them, then she just posted that each week, and that was also really lovely.
And we did that. I'd forgotten about it, but she gave us writing prompts, didn't she? So she'd give us this writing prompt, and then we wrote like a scene from that, which was really fun, wasn't it? I remember doing like a haunted house one, or like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. We should maybe do some more of those. They were quite fun.
And that was her idea. It wasn't us, really. Yeah. We kind of said, what do you want to do? And she was like, I think she kind of liked writing a little bit herself. So she was like, well, what about if? And we even had some of the members of the group, not many, would write version. So there'd be a starter and then you'd write the own. So and again, that took a bit more time because we had to spend some time writing, but it wasn't more than about half an hour to an hour. It wasn't loads, and it was fun because she'd give us stuff in different genres as well, which made it quite interesting. And again, she's got things in her own life that have drawn her away from it now, but I wonder whether we could try and bring some more people in to assist, because it gives a bit more variety as well.
Yeah, that sounds cool. So to finish off, I like to do some quick questions with all my guests. So I'm going to start off with Claire, and I'm going to ask you just some quick questions, and if you can just give answers, that would be awesome. So first of all, what does being indie mean to you?
Okay, well, I think indie standing for independence would be the key thing. So yeah, independence, having control over what I put out there and being able to be creative in a really free way, I suppose. Yeah.
Awesome. Alison?
Oh, okay, we go to it. Yeah, I think my answer would be the same. Being able to write what I want and publish what I want, and when I can do it.
Excellent. So what mistakes do you see indie authors making? Again with Claire.
Also, this is a really hard one. I think the biggest mistake I think someone can make is to have, I think the cover is the most important. And if a cover looks professional, then I've got at least 50, 60, 70% way there to having someone want to look more of a book. So I think someone who makes their own that doesn't do it very well. That's probably quite from my perspective anyway.
Awesome. And Alison?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. I think also for me, and in my experience, I think trying to do everything, like trying to think you have to be on every social media platform, trying everything new. And yes, you have to try things, but I think actually a much more strategic way to approach that and the whole sort of marketing thing is to look at what your strengths are and to try and pick the sort of marketing methods and approaches that align with your strengths and focus on them from the beginning, because you can put a lot more effort into 1 or 2 things than you can into 8 or 10 things.
Excellent. Yeah, that's perfect. So for Claire then, what advice would you have for an author starting today?
I think to persevere, not to expect success immediately, because I think being an indie author is a long road. So not to expect overnight success, but to just keep going, you know, one word at a time, one page at a time, one book at a time until you get there. If you ever do, because it's always a mountain you're going to keep climbing, isn't it, I guess.
Awesome. And to Alison as well, yeah.
I would say read a lot and continue reading, because I feel like there is so much to do as an indie author, and you can focus so much on, I need to write, I need to get the words down, that every minute of your day becomes about writing or listening to podcasts or doing marketing tasks. And actually you need to give your brain the space to take in content, and, you know, even if it's reading in your genre to know what's happening in the market, you need to keep doing that and make time for that, and that is just as important as writing.
And finally then, that leads me on nicely to my last question, which is, if there was one book you think indie authors should read, what is it, Claire?
Okay, I'm going to go for Save the Cat by Blake Snyder, which is obviously a plotting book. That's one of my weaknesses. So that was definitely my go-to book in terms of plotting a novel.
Perfect. And Alison?
So my choice is a book called Dear Writer, You Need to Quit by Becca Syme, which isn't possibly quite as controversial as the title makes it sound, but I think it was really kind of revolutionary for me in terms of realizing that not all writers are the same, that you don't have to approach things in the same way as someone else, and in fact that you may not be able to approach things in the same way as someone else. So in terms of picking and choosing what approach and what strategy to use with your writing and your marketing, I think that's a really useful book.
Excellent. Yeah, both of those books I would highly recommend. I think Save the Cat is just brilliant for plotting. There's actually a Save the Cat Writes a Novel, which is really good as well. And yeah, the Becca Syme books as well, they're fantastic. So yeah, definitely check those out. So finally then, Claire, where can we find you online?
So my author website is www.clarelittlemore.com, Claire without an I. And obviously the Last Book Cafe on Earth Facebook group, come along and see us.
Awesome. And for Alison?
Yeah, so my website's AlisonIngleby.com. I'm on Instagram at Alison Ingleby and Twitter and Facebook at AR Ingleby. But I honestly don't go on Twitter at all nowadays. So yeah, just come along to the Last Book Cafe on Earth and say hello and tell us what your favourite cake is.
Lovely. Yeah, mine is a, I don't know, lemon cheesecake probably. Always a fan of those.
Oh, good choice. Do love a good piece of cheesecake.
Yeah. So remember, you can find Indie Author Mastermind on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those places. So please do check those out. And remember to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. So until next time, cheerio.